And at the end of days, the first sign shall appear in the heavens. Justice shall fall upon the world of men. The armies of light and shadow will clash across the fields of eternity.
15 years ago, the Lord of Terror was unleashed upon the world. In 1995, a small development studio named Condor Games approached Blizzard Entertainment with an idea for a claymation, turn-based single-player RPG with the working title of Diablo. The promise of swords, sorcery, and slicing through waves of demons sold Blizzard on the idea, but a few changes were made. Diablo's turn-based mechanic was replaced with real-time combat, lending the game a relentless hack-and-slash feel. Blizzard was so impressed with Condor's creativity and design savvy that halfway through the game's development, Blizzard's parent company, Davidson & Associates, acquired Condor. The studio was later renamed Blizzard North. Diablo would become one of Blizzard's biggest hits, drawing acclaim from gamers and critics alike, while racking up numerous Game of the Year awards. While 2.5 million sales are an impressive feat, Diablo's greatest impact on the future of Blizzard Entertainment was the debut of the original Battle.net gaming service. Battle.net provided Diablo players with the ability to chat with other gamers and to easily find multiplayer games. Diablo introduced players to the service that would grow into the industry-leading gaming platform we have today.
Fresh meat.
Following a much-needed rest after Diablo's release, Blizzard North immediately set to work on crafting an epic sequel. 5 new character classes were designed, each featuring 3 unique skill trees. Diablo 2's 4-act story would lead players on a gripping campaign to hunt down Diablo and his brothers, Baal, the Lord of Destruction, and Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred. The story was set, and after 3 years, Diablo 2 was released worldwide on June 29, 2000. Diablo 2 sold more than 1 million units in its first 2 weeks, setting a record for the fastest-selling PC game of its time. Battle.net grew in popularity with each Blizzard game release, and Diablo 2 made the service more popular than ever before, thanks to features like chat room avatars and server-side character storage. In 2001, Blizzard released Diablo 2's expansion set, Lord of Destruction. Diablo 2 would remain popular for years to come, and Blizzard would support the game by releasing content and balance patches 9 years after the game's original release. But players continued to wonder, what of a sequel? Where was Diablo 3? When Blizzard North closed its doors in 2005, the future of the franchise seemed uncertain. The truth was finally revealed at the Worldwide Invitational in France in 2008. Diablo 3 would become a reality. This exciting revelation would only bring more questions. What is the fate of Sanctuary? What is Inferno? What would this mean for BattleNet? Would Diablo III capture the action and excitement that made the previous games such a success? The world is about to find out.
Diablo II originally launched in 2000 with 5 playable classes, and the expansion added 2 more. Of those, only one directly transitions to Diablo III, the Barbarian, but if you look closely, there are a lot of similarities between the 2 games. With the ability to summon creatures, Diablo III's Witch Doctor is sort of like Diablo II's Necromancer, but not exactly. By commanding elemental magic, Diablo III's Wizard is kind of like Diablo II's Sorceress, but far from the same. The Demon Hunter in Diablo III fights primarily from range, and shares some of the Diablo II Assassin's trap expertise. Then there's Diablo III's Monk, which has some common ground with Diablo II's Paladin in the form of group buffs, but also plenty of unique, rapid-fire close-range attacks. The shape-shifting ability of Diablo II's Druid isn't represented in Diablo III at all, so perhaps there's room for Blizzard to expand on that concept with post-launch Diablo III content. In this category, a whole lot has changed since the days of Diablo II. In Lord of Destruction, you can only have 2 skills active at any time. When you level up, you gain a skill point, which can then be spent on skills divided across branches. So if you want to use martial arts skills as an assassin, you put points into that tree. If you never spend a skill point on traps, you won't have access to traps, giving your choices more of a feeling of permanence. In Diablo III, your skills unlock automatically as you level. Up to 6 active abilities can be slotted at any one time, in addition to 3 passive skills, so finding skills that work well together is part of the fun. You can switch around skills easily, a significant departure from Diablo II's system. The bonus is that you're no longer locked into a restrictive build, so skill combo experimentation is a lot easier. The potential downside is it might eat away at your sense of class identity, because your skill choices don't have the same significance, and your stats auto-upgrade as you level.
My training has paid off.
The ability to enhance skills in Diablo II by dumping multiple skill points into the same category has also changed in Diablo III. Instead of powering up individual skills, you unlock skill runes as you level, all of which modify the base skill. So with the proper rune activated, the zombie hands of the Witch Doctor's Grasp of the Dead skill change to eels, increasing the damage done. Try not to think about why eels do more damage than zombies. It's really not healthy. Diablo is mostly about fighting stuff. To stay alive, you need to use your skills. While in Diablo II, all classes used mana and could replenish your supplies with potions, Diablo III changes that. There are no more mana potions, and each class has a unique resource type. Wizards consume a rapidly regenerating arcane power, Witch Doctors still use mana, which also swiftly regenerates, and Barbarians build Fury to trigger skills. Basically, this greatly lessens the importance of potions to stay alive. In Diablo II, your survival had a lot to do with spamming potions when in trouble. Health potions still exist in Diablo III, but there's a cooldown after using them, so you have to wait a while before they're available again. That means no potion spam. You'll get some additional help from health globes, which drop randomly and will refill some life, though you have to actually run over to them to activate them, giving you more of a reason to stay in a fight instead of retreat and heal. Managing inventory in Diablo is sort of like a puzzle game. You can only carry around as much as the grid allows for, rearranging items while in the field of battle until everything's full. In Diablo 2, you then trigger a town portal to return to town, sell off your gear, see if vendors offer anything cool, then head back to fight and level and loot. For Diablo 3, at least in the most recent beta build, the cycle of fight, town, fight is still the same. You collect as much gear as you can carry, then trigger a town portal to sell off everything before heading back out into the battlefield. You can drop off any especially cool items in a shared stash, accessible between all your characters, or put them up for sale for in-game gold or real money through the auction house, and then get right back into the fighting with minimal fuss, making the whole process a lot more interesting. Items drop randomly in Diablo. When you kill an enemy, you're never sure what you'll get, giving the reward structure a kind of slot machine appeal. You can tell what kind of item it is by the naming convention. Did you find a Ring of Greed? Well, then you've got an item with a gold find bonus. Stout Small Charm of Life? That's a charm with a boosted defense and bonus to health. This style of naming convention, where prefixes and suffixes indicate stats, carries over to Diablo 3. If what you find in the field doesn't suit you, you can then make your own stuff. The system isn't all that well developed in Diablo 2. Using your Herodric Cube, you can merge together gems to place in items for bonuses, or build an assortment of magic weapons and items. In Diablo 3, Blizzard developed this system a lot more. You get access to a blacksmith early on who can make a huge number of items for you. To do this, you hand over gold and materials, and level up the blacksmith to eventually unlock the ability to craft extremely powerful items. Gems are still a big part of crafting as well, and tied to the jeweler artisan, letting you build better gems to fit into items for a variety of special effects. Basically, if you liked building items, Diablo 3's crafting system is far more sophisticated than what was in Diablo 2.
My name is Jay Wilson, and I'm the game director on Diablo 3. Basically, what that involves is a lot of the creative visionary for how the game is supposed to play and how all the teams kind of work together to play up to that vision and to make it a really fun, good game.
My name is Christian Leitner. I'm the art director on Diablo 3, and it's my job to make sure that everything looks pretty. I'm responsible for making sure that all the graphics in the game look right and the feel and the look of Diablo comes through. I play a lot of video games, obviously. I read comic books. I also like to do just things that involve art in general, like not just even necessarily video game art.
I'm Jason Regier. I'm the lead software engineer on Diablo 3. I work with Jay and Christian here and help take the visions that they come up with. Our team helps bring those visions to life. I'm a big soccer player. Soccer's kind of my game, so I love playing that in my free time. I also love movies a lot, long walks on the beach, that kind of stuff.
Well, the design team is mostly balancing on the more systems-oriented side. So like we're just passing through and just going over. And when you make a game, you don't really fine-tune balance while you're going. It just, a system will change and it'll throw all your balance numbers out. So it's just kind of wasted time. So we're locked down enough now that we're going through and just balancing from the ground up. It's all the quests are in place, all the areas we're going to go, but some of the quests are confusing and some areas don't have enough events. And so they're still kind of creating content. And then, I don't know what the programmers are doing.
Wow, we're doing a lot of stuff right now. We're trying to finish up all the monsters. We're trying to finish up all of the skills and all of the rune variants. Our integration with Battle.net is changing, and we're trying to hook all of that stuff up. There's a lot of work going on right now behind the scenes. So
features-wise, there's very little left that you guys are doing, but the stuff that comes up is like iteration on features. Like we know our Quest UI right now is just not good enough, and so we're going to have to probably are going to have to change it.
Yeah, we're going to be redoing UI a lot because that's one of those things that just keeps getting tweaked until the very last minute because gameplay and accessibility is such a huge part of the gameplay experience.
Yeah, and playing the game. You got to play the game a lot, and that's, something that is hard to do when you're trying to push deadlines. It's really hard to stop and actually play the game and make sure that, it's fun and that you're doing things right. A played game is a fun game. Like if you play your game constantly, then you will have no choice but to make it fun because it'll become grueling otherwise. Our goal is to get it out by the end of 2011. Right now, we're in spring. We're right around our second alpha and pushing towards internal beta.
We completely overhauled the way that we author all of the skills. That meant that we pretty much started over on everything and redid it all from scratch.
So for us now, it's really just making sure that it looks as good as we possibly can make it within the time frame we have. Squeeze in every little thing and make it look really, really good.
The internal alpha is basically the first point where we take the game and we just give it to the company and we say, okay, you guys play it now and tell us what's wrong with it. It's not nerve-wracking at all. Doesn't make us nervous in the least bit. We know that the majority of the feedback will come about Act 1, so essentially we're trying to get Act 1 to shipping quality. The rest is we basically have to pick and choose our battles. So we tend to go through and focus on the things that we think are going to have the biggest impact on quality of gameplay. We have a lot of UI elements that we're kind of finalizing that we've got feedback from the strike teams that just weren't good enough. Stuff that just kind of didn't seem natural to us was actually quite confusing when we put it in front of people who were experiencing the game for the first time.
But that strike team doc was, 50 pages long of things like, here's
53, just on the UI. And we took that doc and we tasked 95% of it. Just said, yes, do all this stuff.
Yeah, I think it wasn't the most fun thing to look at it the first time, but I think we all looked at it and went, yep, that stuff needs to change. Yeah. That's the stuff that makes it better.
At least you have the list, though.
Right.
A list is something you can action on. If you don't know what's wrong, well, that's way worse.
Yeah.
I just did the installer, Windows.
That makes it a little
task.
real.
Yeah, so you start doing those, you're like, yeah, this is cool.
The great thing too is that we've been getting a lot of help from the other development teams and from across the company. The other development teams have been really generous, and it's nice to see how much of a family Blizzard is, and that they're willing to essentially take their own personal goals and push them out so that they can help us achieve ours sooner.
I think it's really exciting seeing a game in a home stretch. It's huge. I think a game like Diablo is a pretty big game to sort of wrap your head around, because there's a lot of things involved with it. And when you start seeing really the pieces coming together as nice as they have been, it's just super exciting.
Gosh, there's so many things that have been going on technically. For us, it's really, at this point, it's kind of a race against the clock. We're just trying to pack as much stuff into the game as possible. I think one of the coolest things that's happened this last month is that we've started to get a lot of the stuff for BattleNet up and running, and you can see it on screen. Previous to this, when you were hopping into a game, you were sort of doing it in sort of a roundabout technical way. But now things are really starting to come together for the final production. Now we're starting to see the screens where you can hop into a game, you can choose other people, you can find your friends. It's all really coming together, and that's pretty exciting. It's starting to look really good. There's just so much to do. I mean, it just seems like there's never enough time because we always want to make the game better and better. We're pretty close at this point. Hopefully, by the end of the day, we'll have a build that we're going to send out to the entire company here and then have everybody play it. I played it for a little bit today, and it looks really, really good. So we play through it just like everybody else, like beginning to end. We try to, as much as we can, wash our brains free of having seen it every single day and just have fun playing it. Yeah, as much as we can.
So I'd say the biggest issue has been just not being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the game and the amount of stuff that needs to get polished all at once. We have a whole bunch of things that we want to finish, and we want to hit our date, which we do have one, despite what people might think. But we also know that the game's got to be great. And so, you know, we have issues come up, and we have to ask ourselves, how serious is that really? Because when you're as close to it as we are, anything that's wrong with it seems like an emergency. Really trying to figure out what actually needs to improve is a big challenge.
We are putting the last polish on everything, so by and large, I think it's turned out really good. I think the team's done an amazing job. There's a few polish items that we're now having to sort of go like, all right, how do we solve this? And make sure that we still get it to where we want to have it at. But I think that's really just talking about a very small margin of it for the most part. I think overall, I think it's looking pretty good.
To be able to, you know, do a really good job of localizing the game is something that Blizzard takes a lot of pride in. That we try to make our games feel like they were designed for each region individually and not like they were ported over to another region. And because of that, we need a lot of lead time on dialogue and things like that. So we lock kind of in steps. So we get a big chunk of the game locked so that we can send that off to localization and they can start their work.
A lot of the localization stuff that Jay talked about, we have to try to flesh that out a little bit more. It's definitely in progress right now. All the localization teams are putting in text, but there's still a lot of little things that we have to do to make the functionality complete.
Yeah, you know, these are things that obviously we've had, or we've known about for a while. So in a lot of ways, we're aware of this as we developed the game for the last few years. But at the same time, I think a lot of our focus has been to make sure that the game's fun. We have plans in place to make sure that as we localize it for different regions, where we have to be aware of different sensitivities, we make concessions for that. So that's definitely on the radar.
There's still a lot of stuff to go for the beta, which would be next. So there's also some bigger game systems that we realized on the way to alpha that we didn't 100% like, or they weren't clear. So we're going to be tweaking a lot of little things like that. I think the big one is the save game system. It's not entirely clear to players right now when the game gets saved. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tweak that around a little bit and see if we can make it more clear for players. Multiplayer functionality, more multiplayer functionality on the Battle.net side is coming every single day. That stuff's going to take off as we head towards the beta. It's going to be great. So.
One of the producers said the other day that the balloon is shrinking. I don't know what that means, but I kind of understand why they say it. It's starting to feel like, yeah, it's starting to feel done. Like it's starting to feel, not all of it, and certainly there's still issues, but like we can look at parts of it and go, yeah, that's pretty much the way it needs to all be. So just do that to everything. Yeah, it's pretty insanely exciting.
Yeah, it's nice to see the to-do list shrink.
Yeah, it hasn't done that in forever.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's always been increasing.
Yeah, we always just make it bigger, and yeah, it's nice to see it get smaller.
I mean, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially for this alpha, to try to pack as much stuff as we can into it. I mean,
I want to put it out there, because I want it to be done. Like and that's the step to getting it done. Like, yeah, it's nerve-wracking, but what's the worst they're going to say? They're going to tell us what's not good enough about it, and then we'll have clarity on what we need to fix. That's a good thing.
Come on! Come on!